We'll call the meeting to order, and please rise for the pledge. We have, do you want to introduce? We have our junior council member, Ms. Shelley LaSalle, who's going to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Bender, would you lead us in a prayer?
Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to come here again, as we do every month, with full freedom to speak, to share our opinions with one another, to do so politely. And we appreciate the opportunity to join together. We ask that you guide us on the council to think wisely and act justly. Amen. Amen.
Please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Dean. Here. Mr. Fitzgerald. Here. Ms. Casabon.
Here.
Mr. Lorino.
Here.
Mr. Taladano.
Present.
Ms. Tanner.
Here.
Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Canulet.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Ms. O'Brien.
Here.
Mr. Lachlan.
Here.
Mr. Bender.
Here.
Mr. Airy.
Here.
And Mr. Randolph.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Public comment. 3-minute time limit established for each member of the public wishing to speak for or against an item on the agenda, except for appeals. Please remember that we will only talk about items on the agenda. Also, please put in a speaker card if you'd like to speak on a matter. To ensure that all speakers are heard, please hold cheers and applause. Anyone who wishes to place a comment in the record but does not wish to speak at the podium may fill out a speaker card and check the box indicating they do not want to speak. Okay. So we have our consent calendar. First page. Oh, I'm sorry. We got to do our presentations first. Number one, Councilman Lorino.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. First off, Mr. Bender, most of the time, starts and he has a junior council member, and he comes, and I watch it all the time, and it works very well. A couple of months ago, I was talking to a good friend of mine, Mr. Shelby LaSalle, and I know the family very well, and I just wanted to bring to the council and also St. Tammany another student in St. Tammany that has really excelled in not only school, community service, whatever she has done. And I'm going to let her speak in a few minutes, but first off, I'll just read this very short one. If I read her bio, we'd be here for about 30 minutes, but it's absolutely wonderful. But anyway, I'd like to introduce our junior council person for tonight's meeting, Ms. Shelby Marie LaSalle. She is a senior at Academy of Sacred Heart, and after graduating, she will attend the University of Miami to study aerospace engineering. Ms. LaSalle's academic and personal accomplishments are impressive, and I'll let her continue this introduction by maybe saying a few things that she has done. So if you don't mind, please welcome Ms. LaSalle on behalf of St. Tammany Parish.
I am also the 85th Greater New Orleans Floral Trail Festival Queen, where I am able to represent a festival of our great state. I represented in Washington, D.C. at D.C. Mardi Gras and at the Rose Parade, where I was able to ride with Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser. And it is a great opportunity for me to speak upon my festival and upon my community. I'm also part of the Croatian American Society, where I get to express my heritage in this great state and the industry of oysters and seafood. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. LaSalle, on behalf of the council, Parish President, Mr. Cooper, we'd like to give you this little certificate.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome to sit up here.
President Cooper, presentation of proclamation to a St. Tammany
Thank you,
Parish
Mr.
government
Chairman.
employee.
Good evening, members of the council, members of our public who are here with us this evening for the March meeting of the Parish Council. Each month I have the honor of presenting a proclamation to one of our Team Tammany employees as Employee of the Month. And this evening with us here tonight is Mr. Ben Edmondson of the Public Works Department. I'm going to ask Ben to stand up here with me as I read this proclamation. You a native of St. Tammany?
Yes, sir.
All right. Whereas Ben Edmondson began his service to St. Tammany Parish in July 2020 as an Equipment Operator 1 and currently serves as Equipment Operator 4 within the Department of Public Works. Whereas Ben's daily responsibilities include operation of the parish's marsh buggy. We all know what the marsh buggy is, right? With which he works to diligently clean and clear major drainage laterals throughout the parish to ensure efficient stormwater conveyance. And whereas Ben is a dependable and valued member of the Department of Public Works, not only for his operation of this important piece of equipment, but also for his positive attitude and depth of equipment knowledge that he brings to every undertaking. And whereas Ben exhibits excellent judgment in the field and performs all assigned duties with the utmost concern for safety and attention to detail. And whereas Ben is always willing to go the extra mile to ensure a project is completed correctly and takes pride in his workmanship and the important role he plays in improving St. Tammany's drainage systems. And whereas Ben is an outstanding employee who performs his duties in an exemplary manner and is committed to serving the citizens of St. Tammany Parish. Now therefore I, Michael B. Cooper, as Parish President for this great parish, do hereby recognize the hard work, dedication, and accomplishments of Mr. Ben Edmondson as Employee of the Month for March 2023, and ask all of our citizens, members of the Parish Council, to acknowledge with a round of applause at this time. Ben, come on, don't wait, I'm gonna give you something, all right? Let me give you the proclamation. Now, Ben he's a lifelong resident of St. Tammany Parish, and he said he prepared about a 10-minute speech. Are you ready? Okay. Good luck. Ben? You gonna take a picture of you? Yes, sir. Before you sit down. I mentioned the marsh buggy. Ben operates the marsh buggy, which is currently clearing some of our laterals, most particularly the McDonald drainage feature around the Beatico Creek estates, and that will soon be completed all the way to the Tangipahoa Parish line, and we'll be moving to other areas of the parish as well. So Ben's an integral part of our team at the Department of Public Works. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Number 3, presentation of Jean Day program funds to Safe Harbor. President Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So every 6 months, our employees contribute, those who wish to contribute a part of their paycheck to a cause that they select. And this 6 months, or the past 6 months, our employees selected Safe Harbor. Safe Harbor is a nonprofit, non-government agency in St. Tammany serving survivors and minor children who are victims of domestic abuse. They provide a safe place to stay in a variety of critical support services ranging from crisis intervention, legal advocacy, to community-based referrals for children, as well as many more. Safe Harbor is a vital resource for the most vulnerable in our community. They are available 24 hours a day, and all of their services are confidential and free with no income eligibility requirements. So this evening, on behalf of our employees, I am happy to present a check to Ms. Kim Kirby, the Director of Safe Harbor, and I'm going to ask her to come up to the podium. Kim? Would you like to say a few words?
First of all, I want to thank all the parish employees for your contribution and your donation. We really appreciate that. President Cooper said everything that I was planning on saying, so I'll just say that on behalf of the victims that we serve, we thank you so much. And let you know that we received close to 5,000 crisis calls last year. We served over 300 victims, and we provided shelter for 83 individuals last year. So this donation will go towards direct services that we provide to the victims. Thank you so much.
The amount collected was $4,700. But I have a real check for you, okay?
They don't take this at the bank.
There we go, there we go.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Well deserved. Thank you.
Item number 4, presentation to Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Councilman Randolph.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to go to the podium? Good evening, good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Oh, okay, all right. I'm just used to that. Mr. Chair, on behalf of the council, we are taking out the opportunity to recognize an organization that is so familiar to the United States as well as internationally. It's one of what we call the Divine Nine, one of 9 African-American Greek letter fraternities and sororities that's been formed really since 1906. And the reason why I go back that far is because that was the time that the very first of these organizations were formed. However, following that, we have that of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and they were founded in 1913. And these ladies are excellent. They are academically inclined. Not only that, but they're involved in the community. They believe in health and welfare of all of its members, as well as those that are citizens of the United States and internationally. And tonight, we'd like to invite up Miss Camila. Camille? Yeah, Camille. Ms. Camille is here to represent the fraternity sorority, Delta Sigma Theta sorority. She is currently the chapter president of the sorority, and their guest speaker is going to be Reverend Dr. Boyd, and she's going to be representing them for their annual ceremony that's going to be held on March 19th.
Yes.
And we want to just recognize you and your chapter as well as your sorority and all the aims and all the goals that you guys set forth to make this country a better country, our community a better community, and also the ladies a better lady.
Thank you.
And we'd like to present this to the
Okay.
St. Tammany Parish Government Certificate of Recognition. The St. Tammany Parish Council recognized Reverend Dr. Gwendolyn Elizabeth Boyd for serving as the 22nd National President of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated from 2000 to 2004, and for her lifelong dedication to STEM, education, and community service. This certificate of recognition was unanimously approved by the St. Tammany Parish Council on the 2nd of March, 2023.
Thank you.
Would you like to have something to say?
Sure. I want to thank you for this presentation on behalf of the Parish Council. Dr. Gwendolyn Boyd is a beloved past national president of our organization, comprising over 300,000 members nationwide and internationally. We are your partners in this community. The Slidell Alumni Chapter is composed of 81 members currently, and we care about everything from physical and mental health, education, international awareness, social action. And so we are your partners in this community, and we are here to uplift the community with you. Thank you.
Okay, so I recognize several of the faces of the ladies in the sorority, and they're very active civically. Ms. Vander, are you in the sorority? Okay, I'll just give you an example. Both Ms. Vander's girls, I taught both of them. They didn't particularly need me to teach them. They're like everything at North Shore, both of them. And I think, don't y'all do a college scholarship too? Okay, they've got a college scholarship. That is a lot of work. They put in a lot of work, and this is a well-deserved acclamation. So thank you, ladies.
Moving on to appointments, resolution to appoint Sue Osborne to the Board of Commissioners for Hospital Service District Number 1. Mr. Dean, would you also like to move and suspend the rules to immediately appoint?
Yes.
All in favor, or any discussion? All in favor? Oh, second.
Do we need to do that? She's.
Councilman Fitzgerald seconded.
Yeah, okay, that's
Yeah.
good.
All in favor, please vote.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
Moving on to number 2, resolution to appoint Colonel Evan Spiceland to the Board of Commissioners for the Greater New Orleans Expressway Commission. Mr. Lorino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Spiceland, and this is his last term. He's currently the chairman of the Causeway, and at this time, and he's doing a great job, as we all know, so I'd like to move to do that. If I could get a second, please.
Second by Mr. Bryan. All right. I know Colonel Spiceland as well, and so it's a good pickup for us. So all in favor, please vote.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
Number 3, resolution to appoint Dwayne Wall and Kevin Caluette to the Board of Commissioners for the St. Tammany Parish Geographic Information System District. Mr. Davis, will you make that motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second by Councilman Lorino. This isn't Parish. Oh, yeah. And also you include a motion to suspend the rules for immediate adoption? Okay.
Yes.
All in favor, please vote.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
Moving to the consent calendar, any items not pulled from the consent calendar are automatically approved in whole by one vote. Items pulled from the consent calendar are discussed and voted upon individually. Majority of the entire council, 8, is required to adopt the consent calendar. We do have a few items to pull. Ordinance for introduction, number 18, number 227, number 21, which is ordinance number 7230.
20.
We also have, what was this?
That's number 20.
We also have number 20, which is ordinance number 7229. Resolutions, number 1, CS number C-6680. Resolution number 2, CS number 6730. We'll look to my right. Any council members have anything else to pull? To my left, anybody have anything to pull? Administration? Anyone else in the audience? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to adopt the consent calendar lest the items pulled. Moved by Councilman Randolph, seconded by Councilman Binder. Please vote.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
All right, moving number 18, ordinance calendar number 7227, ordinance amending the official zoning map of St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana to reclassify a certain parcel located on the east side of Highway 1077 north of Faust Road, Covington, and which property comprises a total of 3.303 acres of land more or less from its present HC2 excuse me, Highway Commercial District to HC3 Highway Commercial District. Councilman Dean.
I'd like to make a motion. There are several things we need to work on this. So I'd like to make a motion. I guess we could just do 30 days at a time. So right now, we'd do 30 days table.
Okay, motion seconded by Councilman Lorino. All in favor on the motion to postpone, please vote.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
All right, number 20, which is ordinance calendar number 7229, ordinance to renew for 3 months a moratorium on the issuance of certain permits by the Parish Department of Planning and Development or development of permits for the construction or placement of automated car washes in the Highway 21 planned corridor. This is in Councilman Dean's district where we have a card on this one. Terrence Bergeron, are you here? Wish to speak?
It was, yeah.
You have 3 minutes, sir. I know this is just for introduction. We're not actually voting on the substance of it tonight.
Oh, then I don't think there's a need to speak then.
Okay.
Thank you.
We just need a motion and a second on that to refer. We have to get a motion and a second on that to refer that.
Yeah,
I guess we have to vote on that.
I got to make a statement too, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So I do have a prepared statement. Thanks to Miss Emily. I initially proposed a moratorium on car washes within the Highway 21 planned corridor district in October of last year due to two new car washes being proposed within about 250 feet of each other, both of which backed up to well-established residential neighborhood. The Highway 21 planned corridor district was initially created in 1989 to protect the scenic benefits of that corridor, including landscaping, lighting, and other design features. With the proliferation of businesses along Highway 21, it has become incumbent upon me to ensure that the purpose of the planned corridor district is being maintained and the impacts on surrounding residential areas are minimized. To that end, I've had multiple meetings with parish staff, developers of these sites, and surrounding neighbors to figure out what changes to the planned corridor review cases or our ordinances may be necessary to balance the interest of all parties. With one of the proposed car washes, the moratorium period allowed time for the developer and surrounding neighbors to reach a consensus on limiting the effects of the car wash on neighbors, including the installation of sound barriers. I've also proposed a limitation on hours of operation for car washes that we just will act on after a while. I've also proposed a limitation on hours of operation for car washes that abut residentially zoned neighborhoods, which is up for adoption on tonight's agenda. I just repeated myself. I'm also looking at the possibility of adding aesthetic, traffic, and sound restrictions to the planned corridor district overlay. For these reasons, I am proposing a 3-month extension of this moratorium to allow to further study this issue and draft any amendments to the ordinances that may be necessary. So I've made a motion.
Okay. And Councilman Lorino, you second that? Okay. That's all we need. All right. Ordinance calendar number, this is number 21, ordinance calendar number 7230. Ordinance to update and realign precinct boundaries, including splitting or merging certain precincts to conform with state law, to clarify correct precinct boundary descriptions, to improve the configuration of precincts, to facilitate parish council district configurations in response to the next federal decennial census, to designate polling places for the realigned precincts, to confirm the descriptions of parish council districts by referring to the numbering of the realigned precincts and for related purposes. And The reason why this one is being pulled is because there was I guess it's a typographical error or a change. There's a change to the ordinance, which in the title, it says to ordain that the polling places are to be established by resolution, and that's changing from to designate polling places for the realigned precincts. And then there's one other change. What is that?
In the fifth whereas, June 13th.
You want to just read it?
The Registrar of Voters, Mr. Dwayne Wall, is here with us tonight, too, and he pointed out one other correction that needs to be made. In the fifth whereas paragraph, it references the annual canvass that needs to be completed no later than June 13th of each year, and that should read June 30th of each year. And then there's also a question about the description of precinct S18 that we need to take a closer look at. We'll leave it as is tonight, but may need to take a closer look at that prior to adoption.
So we have a motion to amend and to refer to the, or to,
We need to vote on the motion to amend, and then we'll need to introduce.
so we have a motion to amend by Councilman Canulette, second by Councilman Laughlin. Please vote.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
And then just a motion second to refer, Councilman Canulette, Councilman Laughlin. Now, to the resolutions that have been pulled, postponed resolutions, number 1, resolution CS number C6680, resolution to concur or not concur with the Town of Pearl River annexation and rezoning of 12.2 and 3.0 acres, more or less, from Parish I-2 industrial and A2 residential to Town of Pearl River R3 multifamily residential for both parcels. Property is located on the Pump Slow Road and divided by I-59, total of 15.2 acres situated in Section 6, Township 8 South, Range 15 East, Ward 8, and District 9. This is Councilman Smith.
This is an issue that needs to be put off for 1 month because we've got something we're voting on in the ordinances to renew the growth agreement, and this would fall within that agreement. So it's a timing issue. Move to postpone a month.
Motion postponed, seconded by Councilwoman O'Brien. Please vote.
Oops.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
Resolution number 2, CS number C6730, resolution to concur, not concur with the City of Slidell annexation and rezoning of Lot 1 through 10, Square 2, Central Park subdivision from Parish NC 1 and A4A to City of Slidell C4 Highway Commercial. Property is located near intersection of Spanish Court and Highway 433, Slidell, Louisiana, situated in Section 23, Township 9 South, Range 11 East. Councilman Bender.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to make a motion to postpone for 1 more month. In speaking with legal, specifically Ms. Emily, we've got one small item, but it's important that, you know, she needs to take a closer look at, and of course I want her to, but I think we can move forward probably next month, okay? So that's my motion to postpone for 1 month. Thank you.
Second by Councilman Laughlin. All in favor of the motion, please vote.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
That should conclude the consent calendar, right? Okay. All right, that concludes our consent calendar. We'll move to appeals. Each side is allotted 10 minutes to present their case and 3 minutes for rebuttal. A 2-minute conclusion side may be allowed if questions are asked by the council. So we have appeal number 1, Rosalind Dufresne, Nancy Erst, and Gordon Johnson appealing the Zoning Commission approval on July 5th, 2022 to rezone 3.3 acres located on the southwest corner of Harrison Avenue and Ravine Street, Avita Springs, from A2 Suburban District to E1 Primary Education District. And Ms. Ernst. Just 2 cards.
These don't want to speak.
Okay.
And I don't know who these what they want to speak on. They didn't put with appeal.
Good evening.
And we have at least one other card, so just, 10 minutes.
Yes,
Hope
sir.
you, okay, thank you.
I was told I had to be nice, so it'll probably be short. We had a meeting to discuss their plans. And although we were in the meeting, we didn't really have a choice of what we wanted to happen. We have a petition of 360 people in that immediate neighborhood that are against the daycare being built there. It's not against the business being a daycare, it's against the placement and the zoning of where it is. We are an A2 subdivision, and you're putting an 8,000 square foot for-profit business in our neighborhood. We don't want it. We don't feel like we're being represented when you're told in a meeting that, oh, those 360 people, they don't know what's going on. But we voiced our opinion, and it's fallen on deaf ears. If we wanted it, we wouldn't have been fighting since last June. It's ridiculous. You want an A2, you want the 8,000 square building, build it next to your house. Build it in your neighborhood, in your subdivision, where the streets are really small, where 2 cars can hardly pass. We got school buses that have to go down that street too. We have to pull over on the side of the road or in somebody's driveway for the school bus to go by. Now you're putting in 90 cars extra. That's a lot of traffic on a side street on Dog Pound Road. Those Dog Pound Road streets are not wide enough to handle the traffic. And we don't want it in our subdivision.
Mr. John Vincent?
John Vincent, 21573 Soul Drive. First of all, I see a lot of red shirts. I'm glad somebody spent some money. But for a moment there, I thought it was people from Red Gap Acres, the very people who are appealing this decision. And I sort of feel like I'm on the walls of the Alamo. Mr. Toledano's made a hole in that wall that we can escape through and maybe fight another day for some other intrusion in our neighborhood. And Mr. Toledano pointed out to me that ED1 is allowed in an A2 zone neighborhood. But just because it's allowed, does it really have to be there? Is it appropriate? Is it a good fit? As Ms. Ernst pointed out, we're not against mothers with children. We're not against childcare. We're not against business operators. I operated a business for over 35 years myself. What we're against is the improper placement of a facility in a neighborhood that does not belong. And the interesting thing about A2 zoning, it's suburban residential. So, a rural suburban environment, most of us have 1 acre lots or more. And the reason why we bought there was to be in a nice wooded area that was at one time very typical of St. Tammany Parish, but that's what we're losing. So, as Ms. Ernst said, this may be a foregone conclusion, and I'm gonna have to leave the wall to fight another day, because I'm not David Crockett.
That's all the cards that we have. Okay. No, it's Mr. Shane, come up, please.
You ready for us?
Yes.
Yeah, I have some materials I'd like to have you pass out, if you would, please. And also, would you give
do not wish to speak.
There are some cards, but they
They
didn't.
wanted to speak on.
Hold on. I have 3 cards, but there wasn't any indication of which one they wanted to speak on. So maybe let me call those out. Charlie Clark. That's the reason why I didn't say it. Christopher Treadway. Did you want to speak? Yes, sir. Okay, come up to the podium then.
My name's Christopher Treadaway. I've been a resident of St. Tammany since 1970. Grew up in a little neighborhood off of Thompson Road. Been a resident in Red Gap Acres for about 20 years now. It's a quiet neighborhood. I live on Ravine Street, which is 3 doors down from where this proposed project is going to be. Ms. Ernst was right, our roads are narrow. It's 15.5 feet to be exact. It's a quiet neighborhood, safe, raised both my kids there. And it's just, we've got the feeling that we don't have much of an option about this thing, that it's going to happen anyway. So the neighborhood and everybody that I've spoken with, and we do have a petition, pretty much everybody's not for this happening. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And I would hope that Mr. Walker takes into consideration what we discussed with him last week. That's all I got.
We have David Elder. Did you want to speak on this matter? Okay. Then we had 1 card, but they did not wish to speak, but that was in favor of the appeal. Okay, now, Mr. Shane, I think it's time for you to go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Honorable Counsel. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm, representing Chuck and Hillary Walker, who are here with me this evening. They're the owners and operators of the Kids Clubhouse facilities, 5 of which are throughout our parish. And we come to you this evening asking that you introduce an ordinance to change the zoning of this 3-acre parcel at the corner of Ravine and Harrison Avenue from its current A2 zone to an EDU zone. Where I'd like to start is take a look at the letter that I have presented to you this evening. There's some high points there that I think are worth mentioning to remind you why we believe that this is a reasonable request. First and foremost, when this case was filed, the staff report issued by the Planning and Zoning Department, in our view, was favorable and did not point out any particular deficiencies or problems that would arise as a result of the proposed rezoning. Also, we procured a 7-2 favorable recommendation by the Zoning Commission, and of course in support of the change of zoning in this case. When the matter first came to you upon appeal, Mr. Toledano believed that many of the residents' concerns involved the traffic issue. Not that that was their only issue, but based on that belief, he asked us to procure a traffic study as it relates to what the impacts of a daycare operation at this location would be. It took a while for us to get the scope developed and later to get the counts made. And then we submitted a study to the parish, which was reviewed. It was critiqued. There were some items that they felt still needed to be addressed. My consultant went back and addressed those items, resulting in 100% approval by the parish engineering department, its traffic engineer, Mr. Ted Reynolds. There are literally no concerns about the impacts. It does not create failing levels of service at any of the studied intersections. It doesn't create safety or convenience concerns, things of that nature. And I have given you an excerpt, a conclusion page of that traffic study in the materials that I have provided you. Notice that we selected the ED1 zone because it is very restrictive as to the things that you can do in the ED1 zone, and you'll see those uses listed at the bottom of the first page of my letter, at the top of the second page. And the idea is that although daycare can be done in other zoning classifications, we didn't think it was appropriate to introduce a commercial zone into the Harrison Avenue corridor. We only want to zone this property in order to be able to operate a daycare center. And if you'll look at those uses in my letter, I think you will see they are very few. They are all educational and institutional in nature, and presumably will protect those that live in that neighborhood from other uses that, quite frankly, may not fit nearly so well. With regard to the site plan that I have given you, a couple of things that I want to bring to your attention. It would have been easy for us to have this facility face Harrison Avenue and have connecting driveways on Harrison Avenue. But at the request of Mr. Toledano, and after study by my clients and also our traffic consultant, we determined that it was better to get the cars off of Harrison, which is a more heavily traveled road, and have those entranceways on Ravine. And a couple of things that I want to bring to your attention, which I think are important. By having two access points to the property, we selected the southern driveway as the ingress, which is about 175 feet south of Harrison. We didn't want to take any chance of cars stacking on Harrison or on Ravine before they got into our site. That, of course, allowed us to let all of the cars exiting come out on the northern driveway, most of which will go, of course, to the north to Harrison Avenue, unless those families happen to live to the south and they need to use Ravine. Please note that we've also created stacking within our site off the public roads for 36 vehicles, some of which are parking spaces, because of course some parents come and park and bring their child or children in, some of which will be those that are in the car line. And this brings up an important point that seems evident, but sometimes we don't think about with daycare. And that is, we don't have a bell at our facility that rings at an appointed time, which means we don't have a rush to get every Johnny and Debbie at school for 7:15 or 8:15. In fact, our windows for receiving run from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., and likewise for pickup from 3:30 to 6. We have capped our attendance and have indicated such in the filings that we've made at 90 students, and the traffic study has suggested that at best there will only be a few cars that should be literally dropping or picking up at any one time, because obviously they're spread through those windows of time, depending on when you have to go to work, depending on when you're taking kids perhaps to grade school, depending on a lot of factors. So one of the things we wanted to do, not just for our benefit, but for the benefit of the residents, was to create a facility that had infrastructure within it to assure them that we should not have cars stacked in Ravine, much less Harrison Avenue. In addition to that, if you look at the site plan, you'll see that we have created some generous buffers along the perimeters, which will be heavily landscaped, and to the extent that code requires, we'll have solid fencing along our southern boundary where we abut other residential property. We also have shown the approximate location and size of a proposed retention pond. We recognize that we're going to have to accommodate for the water that is generated by this development, but because we are an EDU zone, if this project goes forward, we will have to reduce the rate of runoff by 15% for a 25-year storm event, which means we'll collect our water, we'll hold it, and we'll actually release less water into the drainway after it's developed than is released into the drainway today in its undeveloped status. And we think that's, of course, very, very important. A few other points that I think need to be made. I appreciate the comments made by those that spoke, of course, from the neighborhood. I disagree about whether or not there are choices to be made, whether it's by me, them, or by you as the council. I believe that there has been a good debate, and I think that Mr. Toledano intentionally made sure that all of the issues got properly vetted over the last 6 months or so since this case first came to you on appeal. And we have tried through, in meeting with certain residents and leaders, as well as just making certain tweaks to our site plan and our operation plan. We want to do everything we can to make this facility work at this particular location. My clients have been in this business for 23 years. They have 5 or 6 facilities presently in the parish. They have one other being planned for the east side. They live literally next door to their facility near Madisonville Elementary School on the west side of the parish. My point is that they're homegrown, they're business people, and they feel that they have an obligation to make sure that their business is not only providing services for families that need daycare, but also that it's compatible, that it's fair, that it's not unreasonable. They understand that if these facilities aren't put in the right place, or they aren't run properly, or you don't have attention to cleanliness or drainage, stacking of cars, etc., well, sure, the properties can become a nuisance. But I would also bring to your attention that if you're familiar with Harrison Drive, you'll see that along Harrison Avenue, there are some other similar institutional uses. We have a fire station, we have a church, we have the North Shore Humane Society, we have a pet cemetery and a pet park. I'm not suggesting that their operational impacts are the same. That is not the point. The point is that there is a presence of institutional type uses that provide services for the people that live in the area. So my closing thoughts at this point would be, and maybe we have overcooked the ham, but I think really we bring a needed service to people in the region. That doesn't mean that everyone on the first block, second, or third block may need child care. But my point is that the success of child care and daycare facilities are to provide these facilities and services at a locale that is convenient to parents. They're in their travel routes. It's the routes they're taking to go to work, to take other children to school, etc. Well, we know at peak there's 1,100 cars that move through this section of Harrison Avenue. We believe that we're actually bringing something to the people, and it will help keep some of the people out of the other crowded corridors trying to go to other daycares. Thank you.
We have 3 minutes for rebuttal. Anybody like to speak? Do I need to call their name or no? Okay. Hearing no rebuttal, I assume you don't want any rebuttal to no rebuttal, or?
Yes, sir. I would like to take just one more minute if I could.
Sure.
And my client would like to address you as well. So before I'm seated, 2 things. One thing that I have tendered to your council clerk this evening is a petition that was signed by 451 people throughout the parish that have familiarity with Kids Club. And that petition specifically said that they're personally familiar with at least one of the 5 existing Kids Clubhouse daycare facilities. They signed the petition in support to its proposed expansion. And the reasons they do are 4. 1, it provides a convenient, well-kept, well-run, and professional daycare opportunity for local families. Number 2, it's staffed with caring and knowledgeable personnel. Number 3, it's consistently providing safe and efficient traffic access for both drop-off and pickup without experiencing long lines, unsafe conditions, and/or delays. And number 4, they believe that it makes a real difference in the community by providing positive support and services to local families. I realize that the 451 don't live probably within 2 miles of this location. But I do think it's important for you to know that there are residents and employees and people in the parish that live near my clients' other facilities that enjoy positive experiences and are not aware of negative experiences. So I think it is appropriate for a business that wants to expand and locate into an area, if they have a good track record and they've been able to make it work, they deserve that opportunity. If we could stop the clock and let Mr. Walker come up and finish up. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Chuck Walker, representing my family and my bride, Hillary. Thank you all for having us here tonight. I've heard the concerns of everybody. We've dealt with them over the last 6, 8, 9 months. I would like to present to you a living, working example of what we're talking about doing on Abita. And it's standing in front of you, and it's sitting down over here. My house is 250 feet behind Kids Club House on Madisonville, which was 6.7 acres of A2 zoning. We rezoned it, put a preschool there. I live 250 feet. The things that were brought up over the last few months and were addressed, no stacking, no traffic, no stink, no noise. It's my forever home that I chose to put there. I wouldn't ask somebody to do something that I wouldn't do myself. I did it. It works wonderful for the community. It's entrenched, and it provides a service. I do understand the concerns, but I thank you very much for having us here tonight. Thank you.
Councilman Toledano. All right, I have Mr.
To yield to my colleague, Mr.
Sure.
Bender, first, if you don't mind, seeing him in the
Sure, we'll take you last.
lineup.
Councilman Bender?
Thank you, Mr. Toledano. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've been looking at this appeal for several weeks now, and you know, you try to get your head around appeals that are not near your neighborhood, and that's what I attempted to do. And I think I have, to a large degree, not like people who live in that community, but strong comparisons. So let me tell you where I live. So in my homeowners association, we have an elementary school about 2 blocks behind my home. It's been there for quite a long time. At drop-off and pick-up in the evening, there's a long line out there, okay? But we also have a private school, a Catholic school in the neighborhood, and you see the same thing. Long line, drop-off, very long line, waiting, pick-up. We also had a daycare come into the neighborhood about 5 years ago. And it is immediately across the street from the Catholic elementary school. What I know is the difference is I don't see car lines at all, okay? It is right next to homes, just like this situation. There are built homes right next to this facility. It holds about 75 children. You know, we do care for our children, and many people have to have their children in daycare nowadays because both are working. So what's my experience in 5 years? I have to tell you, it's been very positive. I haven't received one complaint, and homes are right up against it, and there's 1 block of homes directly across the street from it. And when I go by to take a look, it's staggered. You know, parents come back at different times, okay? That's not the case. And we are caring for our children that go to school. And there's a major difference. And we live with it. You know, we're partnering with our 2 elementary schools and partnering with this daycare run by one of the elementary schools for the babies and the younger children, and it works. I can only go by what I see as living, breathing for many, many years, and 5 years with this. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Riker.
Mr. Canulette?
Yeah, Mr. Shane? I don't know if you can answer these or not. If not, we'll get staff to answer them. I see on your map you have a retention area. Is that going to be dry or wet?
It's to be determined. We haven't really done all the hydrology yet, so it'll be dependent on what's needed. Obviously, there's safety issues and concerns as well. But
Yeah, so, I mean, I'll just get right to it. I mean, if it's going to be wet, you're going to need a fence around that thing.
Sure, we understand that, and for obvious reasons
Yeah.
and for good reason.
Yeah.
But we have really not done all of the hydrology or really any of the significant hydrology. We've taken a look at some of the topo stuff, and we just wanted to suggest that we understand that we have an obligation to collect our water.
I understand, okay, just, yeah, so as long as y'all know that you're gonna have to do something with it.
Sure.
Keep kids, all right, thank you. That's it.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Davis?
Mr. Shane,
Yes, sir.
I do see the rationale in having the entrance at the southernmost tip of the property. So when the cars turn in off of Ravine Street and they go towards the back, and I see when it turns back around, they're going to be dropping the kids off in two different locations? Is that what the
Would be
map shows?
possible. We have 28 parking spaces.
Right.
12 of which will be for employees, 16 of which will be for patrons or parents. And then in addition to that, you'll see that the driveway does do a split so that you have one that goes through, I guess, like a porte-cochere or covered canopy area.
Okay.
And a second. So, the operation of that will depend. Most of us tend to visualize what we see at elementary schools.
Right.
And this is not an elementary school, meaning that it will be very unusual for there to be more than 1, 2, perhaps 3 cars at any one time.
At any one time.
Some will have the style of wanting to park and bring their baby in with the bag.
Right.
And some may have the style of pulling under the porte-cochere and letting the 2.5 or 3-year-old be received. So it just depends.
Okay.
But we're confident that we have enough options and enough on-site opportunity, I guess is a better way of saying it, to make sure that these things won't conflict in any way with the travel lanes on Ravine and Harrison.
Okay. And I see that by looking at the schematic that you gave us, the yellow covered, that's a covered area at the very entrance of the school in the very front, right?
No.
Is that a covered area?
The dark green? The out
actual-
front, yes.
Yeah, so I can suggest with the amount of rain that we get, you might want to go ahead and extend that all the way to the other side as well.
Sure.
Just in case, it's
Well,
always
as I
easy to
said-
drop the kids off,
Point well made. As I said, the nice thing is Chuck and Hillary are in the business for a long time.
Yeah.
And they understand the climate, and I'm sure they're going to build a facility that will have just what you're thinking to make sure that we have good covering for the children.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Laughlin?
Mr. Shane, if you don't mind, I had a couple of questions. So it appears that your client has made numerous concessions to appease the neighborhood. The one thing I appreciate to build on what my colleague, Councilman, said was when I still have children in car line. So I see this second line as for the one who chooses to drop the kid off, gives you the chance to escape. Because we like to do that, but we're still stuck in car line at the school where I go to. I also appreciate it looks like y'all have taken the time, and I trust that your client would also identify that there is a need for a daycare here in this area. And I can only imagine, in our neighborhood, we have 2, and we do know that it does help with our home values. It does help bring them up because younger families need access to daycare, and you need to be convenient. So,
You're correct, Mr. Laughlin. One of the reasons that this site was selected is we believe there's a real need, and likewise, we think we're going to bring a valued service to that region.
Thank you.
Councilwoman O'Brien?
Yes, as a professional educator, I just reiterate the importance of having high-quality daycare for students. I like the site plan. I think it's very important to have access for stacking. I've been in education on and off for about 30 years, and I have to tell you, I'm not familiar with any school that I've been in, and I've taught in Kansas and in Louisiana in multiple parishes. And I don't recall any major issue with neighborhoods that were near elementary schools. So with a daycare, when you have kids coming in between 6 and 10 and leaving between 3:30 and 6, I can't anticipate it would be even remotely close to what we see at an elementary level. So I'm going to go ahead and support this. I think the plan is going to work, and I think it's a critical need for our area. It's important for especially single moms to be able to, I mean, it's important for everybody, but it's important to have access to high-quality daycare.
Councilman Mike Smith.
Okay, my kids went to a daycare over by Cypress Cove. It was in a neighborhood in Jake's district. It operated with no problem. They had more traffic going in and out of the Mormon church next door. Catholic church is down the street from me. They have people in and out all day, every day, especially during fish fry season. Come by and get some fish. I'll be cooking tomorrow night. But they even fish fry night. We get them in and out. It's certainly workable. If Mr. Walker was running 5 of these, and if he wasn't doing a pretty good job, you'd have people in here from other areas complaining and trying to stop him from getting another one. So I think you probably have a pretty good deal here.
Councilman Toledano.
Thank you very much. I'm on. This is not of one of many, as my fellow councilmen know, that seems like a lot of the controversial zoning issues pop up in District 5. But at least in this particular time, these people in red, who I thought were here for a blood drive originally, I now I'm told are here because of this case. Is that correct? I really thought it was a blood drive. But let me, and something like this needs to be fully discussed. And for a lot of people in this audience, including my good friend, Mr. Clark, who on this case is on the side of opposing this, knows the level of due diligence that I try to apply in these things. I'm not sure how many hours I've spent, but if I was billing it as a lawyer, my secretary would say, oh, we did pretty good this week. But I spent a lot of time looking at this because it's a little bit of a unique problem. And I spoke to people like Ms. Ernst, very long resident in the neighborhood, knows her community very well. Some of the other gentlemen that spoke, Mr. Treadway. And so it became a really interesting question to me about whether this is appropriate. So in applying the due diligence approach that I did, certain things came to my mind that I think are relevant to this case. Number one is, this is, and no disrespect to young kids because I love them, this is not a wild Indian reservation of young kids. This is a type 3 educational facility. And that speaks well for Mr. Walker, who I never knew from anybody until I met him the other day. The concerns that the good people in the neighborhood raised varied. One of them, point extremely well made, this is a serene neighborhood. Then other people said, you know what, having kids next door is sort of a nice thing. Some people said, we think the traffic study is flawed. I carefully scrutinized the traffic study, sort of cross-examined Mr. Reynolds, the gentleman who reviews it, and the traffic engineer who did the study. They weren't required to do it. I made them do it. Cost them a lot of money. Really that didn't hurt my soul at all, because some people in this neighborhood, good long-standing residents, said, I'm concerned about the traffic. A few individuals said, you know, this traffic is going to funnel through Ravine Street. Logically, I couldn't make this work in my mind. And by the way, my law office is up Harrison Avenue or down Harrison, however you would measure it, a period a little bit further down, closer to the highway. But I looked at the issue with regard to that, and I'm convinced that the part of the traffic that will go through Ravine Street is minor. And the traffic engineers were compelled and were asked to take that into consideration. as you heard before when Mr. Shane mentioned, the traffic engineer reports that this project will not cause, in summary words, a hindrance to this community or to the neighborhood. Another thing was the traffic study, and the drainage study, and I won't spend a lot of time on it because we all know on this side, and I think most people know, that at the end of the day, what they will have to do for drainage will actually reduce the runoff on this property, so it will be less of a burden to our neighbors. There were some questions, and they were valid questions, the logistics of dumpsters and things such as that, and those questions I think were fully answered. And by the way, what I did, and what I often do, as you know, and for people in the audience, I put all these people in the same room because I believe that an open, candid, transparent discussion about what is going to happen in their neighborhood is the best way to proceed. They have a right to ask these people questions, and these people have a right to tell them what their replies are and what their responses is. We had that meeting. It was an excellent meeting. I had the traffic engineer attend, among others. I believe there was quite a few questions answered. One of the questions, thank you very much, whoever silenced. One of the questions had to do with stacking. That was one of my concerns. Because originally when this thing came to my knowledge, that was one of the main concerns I had. But I am convinced, and I've carefully questioned the traffic engineer as well as our staff member, and I'm convinced that there will not be a stacking issue with regard to the roadways. Now, they do have a very good plan, which I asked them to expand, and they did from their first pro forma, if you will, so that traffic and stacking should not be a problem. Here's an interesting point I tell us as I look at it. Within a 10-minute drive of this proposed daycare, there's 1,620 children 4 years old or younger. Within 20 minutes is 6,500. Now, the right argument from my good friend, Mr. Vincent, who is very articulate, he would say, well, you know what? That's really not the criteria. The criteria is whether it fits in our neighborhood, right? And the answer to that is correct. However, it's information that is good information for us, because here at the end of the day, our community needs to service our community. Our community needs to service our working people. Our community needs to service our children. We don't want, I don't have any little young ones, but I can remember when I was little in New Orleans, I went to, my mom and dad took me to a daycare right in the middle of a fancy residential neighborhood. Some of the older birds in the audience might remember Mercantils, in the heart of a fancy residential area of New Orleans. Because that's where these things belong. They don't belong out on Highway 190. They don't belong at a shopping center. They don't belong on the interstate. And so just part of my looking at this question, not that it was a controlling issue, but I wanted to make sure that there was a need. Now, Mr. Shane might have said it and I might have missed it, but they have agreed to limit their number to 90, correct? The significance of that is we see in our community schools that begin as little schools and they become big schools. Well, as a credit to Mr. Walker and Mr. Shane as his attorney, they're going to limit that. So it's not going to be a proliferation where the next thing you know, it's a 400-student facility, because in all fairness to the neighborhood, and frankly to me, that ball game would have changed and I would be looking at that differently. So I think it's important for us to know that. It's important for us to know that when this facility comes online, I do not believe and have not seen any technical information that tells me that it was harmful. One of the things that was brought out in our meetings, and I think it was educational to virtually all of us, is in the improvements to Harrison Avenue, we are going to install J-turns. For those of us who questioned J-turns on 190 originally, including myself, I spent a long time initially criticizing it, quite frankly, with the Highway Department, but Ms. Gowan and some others convinced me to give it a chance, and now I call them and say, I apologize for saying that. J-turns is the best thing that ever happened on Highway 190. So there are going to be some nice road improvements that are going to make it a better place to drive. All those things being considered, I cannot find any reason to not support this. And for that reason, Mr. Chairman, I am going to make sure I make the correct motion. I'm going to concur with the zoning approval and ask that my fellow members of this council allow this matter to go forth and say to the people that appeal that I respect their position beyond what words can say, but I think I've tried to look at every issue that you have raised, and I believe this is the right thing for the neighborhood, and I think it'll be a tremendous addition to our community. And by the way, I checked out for my own self Mr. Walker's business, and I find nothing other than compliments for the way he runs his shop.
So we have a motion to concur. Do we have a second? Got Councilman Lorino seconds. Please vote.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
All right, now we need a motion to introduce. Councilman Toledano, you move to introduce, and Councilman Davis seconds. All right. Move into. Sir, please, sir. Number 2, Richard T. Kevitt, appealing the zoning commission denial on January 3rd, 2023 to rezone 2.048 acres located on the east side of LA Highway 21, south of Alexander Drive, Covington, from A1A Suburban District to NC5 Retail and Service District, Ward 10, District 6. Council.
All of these are not in favor.
Oh, these are not in favor. Okay. So who gets to go first? Richard.
But he didn't put a card in.
Yeah, is Richard T. Kevitt here, or anybody on his behalf? You guys don't show up. Not in favor of the appeal?
Not in favor, yeah.
Is there anybody here in favor of the appeal? Is anybody going to speak to present a case?
Well, Mr. Kibbett, let me just mention this. I had a note from Mr. Kibbett that he actually took ill and was here for a moment and had to leave. I should, as a courtesy, I should mention that to him because he alerted me to that. I know Mr. Kibbett, and he did that, and I found that out, Cheryl, just while I was sitting here.
Thank you, Mr. Toledano,
Yeah.
for helping me out in my district. I appreciate it. Thank you.
What's that?
I said thank you.
Helping out.
Councilwoman
What's she talking about?
Tanner, how do you want to proceed? Do you want to go forward with this?
Yes.
Okay.
Does anyone want to speak?
What was she talking about?
Can I have a show of hands that the ones that are here in favor of denying the zoning? Okay. Would anyone like to speak?
I have several cards.
I have a bunch of cards if you want to do the 10 minutes.
Anyone would like to speak, you have 10 minutes, if someone would like
All
to
right.
speak. It's not necessary. Thank you very much. Is it my turn?
Yes, it's your turn.
Okay. All right. Thank everyone for being here. I know this has been 5 or 6 months of continuous turmoil. I think this started out with the Dollar General. For most of you that do not know, Dollar General did file the appeal. Once they lost the appeal, they pulled out of this. Mr. Kivett was asking to go ahead and rezone for NC5. And Mr. Liner, could you please come to the podium just to let the people know briefly what NC5 is? And if you notice from last month, I've improved my people skill. I'm working on it, okay?
I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Front and center, I mean, it wasn't a bad,
I'm
way to
getting
get me
better.
up here.
Thank you.
I'm good, I'll come up here with any direction.
Teach you to walk around. Teach you to walk around here.
Just give them, so in case they do not know, this is zoned A1A, and he was asking for NC5. Would you just briefly tell what can go in that zoning?
Yep, so restaurants greater than 5,000 square feet with a lounge, food stores under 3,000 square feet, and dry cleaners, laundries, self-service laundries, and then anything in the step-down zoning of NC 4, 3, 2, and 1. So the NCs definitely are more intense in this area, maybe can handle right now. So it's something to look at on a case-by-case basis as applications are brought to the zoning commission. So
Okay. I thank you very much.
anytime.
Okay. And for my fellow councilmen that are not aware of this area, this is Highway 21 as you go out from Covington. It is a very scenic, one of our few rural areas, and it's pine trees, houses, not commercial. They have a historic church, the Walheim Methodist Church. This is not the area to be rezoned. So therefore, I would like to concur with the zoning commission to deny this rezoning.
Seconded. Mr. Casabon, did you want to say anything, or do you just want a second?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, this particular area, it's, like she said, beautiful church. I think it's next to a cemetery. It's just not an appropriate part for commercial.
Okay.
But I second her.
Motion and second, I'll note, and obviously we saw the show of hands, but there are 7 cards that were willing to speak against approving the appeal. So the motion is to concur with the zoning denial, correct? Okay. And with a second. Please vote.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
Please, no applause, no applause. All right, let's move on. Yes.
I'll make the resolution.
We have a resolution and a second by Councilman Canulette. Please vote.
Be careful going home.
Yes.
Mr. Randolph? The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
All right, moving to postponed ordinances amending the code. Ordinance calendar number 7079, an ordinance to amend the St. Tammany Parish Code of Ordinance, Part 2, Land Development Code, Chapter 130, Unified Development Code, Vehicle V Overlays, Division 6, Planned Corridor District, Section 1301814, Special Design Standards to limit hours of operation for certain uses within the Highway 21 Planned Corridor, Ward 1, District 1. Councilman Dean.
Yes, sir, I'd like to make a motion to table this for 30 days, please, or until our next meeting.
Okay, there's 2 cards in here, but there's a motion to postpone. Would either you'd like to talk or? Okay. Okay, and that's Mr. Williams and Mr. D. Okay, all right. So we have a motion to postpone for 1 month, seconded by Ms. Casabon. Please vote.
The motion is unanimous with 1 absent.
Right, number 2, ordinance calendar number 7127, ordinance to amend portions of ordinance CS number 122707, adopted April 5, 2012 and codified in Section 40-333A of the Code of Ordinances of the Parish of St. Tammany, which established and validated fees for sewer and water services provided by systems owned and operated by the parish. I believe, Mr. Toledano, you have a motion to postpone this for 3 months?
I do, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. It's an ongoing effort, but I've met with Mr. Tissue. We have a small committee reviewing it. He's in a position to start putting the information out and getting additional feedback from the affected agencies. But at this time, it's premature, and given the timetable, I'd move to postpone it for 3 months, if you don't mind.
And Mr. Davis with a second. We do have 2 cards, but does anybody want to speak? Ms. Ebersabel or Mr. Hayward? Okay. All right, please vote.
Thank you very much.
The motion is unanimous with 1 absent.
Moratorium ordinances, ordinance calendar number 7188, ordinance to extend for 6 months the moratorium on receipt of subdivisions by the Parish Zoning and Planning Commission for the rezoning or re-subdivision of property and or the issuance of permits for construction or placement of any building structures on property south of Interstate 12, north of Highway 90, west of Highway 11, and east of the Precinct S19 boundary line with unincorporated boundaries of Ward 9 and District 14. Councilman Randolph.
So moved.
Do we need an update
So
on
moved.
that one? We need an update on that. I think read some reasons into the record on why we're extending that one.
Okay. You need them written or verbal?
You could just,
I'll send them to you.
He needs to send them to Gina. He needs to send them to Gina.
you need to send them to Ms. Campo,
Okay.
please. Okay.
All right.
Please vote on that one.
I need y'all to vote. The motion is unanimous with 3 absent.
Number 4, ordinance calendar 7189, ordinance to extend for 6 months the moratorium on issuance of building or conditional use permits for construction or placement of building structures on property within a portion of unincorporated town of Alton subdivision, Ward 9, District 14. Councilman Randolph.
And I'd like to also move on that, and the rationale is because we already have a revitalization plan in place, and we'd like to make sure that we continue with that revitalization plan, work toward it, but I'll put some things in writing, for sure.
And do you have an estimated timeline on when that'll be done, or would that be in the
6 months would be, we're good.
Okay. All right, please vote.
The motion is unanimous with 3 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 7190, ordinance to extend for 6 months the moratorium on receipt of subdivision or submissions by the Parish Planning and Zoning Commission for the re-subdivision or rezoning of certain property and or the issuance of certain permits by the Parish Planning and Parish Department of Planning and Development permits for the construction or placement of certain building structures on property in an area bounded by South Military Road, Galls Boulevard East, Amber Street, Lake Village Boulevard, Cross Gates Boulevard, Highway 1090, East Porters River Road, Porters River, West Pearl River, and Doubloon Branch, Ward 8, District 9. Councilman Smith, and we need an update on this one.
We're making some progress on the water system and sanitation system. These are long-term projects. They haven't broken ground yet, although we do have one water line going in. It was pretty needed. I've got some other construction items that are coming up. I've got a subdivision, 2 subdivisions going in, and until we get some of the traffic issues worked out and some of the water and sewage issues worked out. I'd like a 6-month extension, probably longer than that, but I want to do it 6 months at a time in case we do make headway and can lift the moratorium. Move to adopt.
Councilman Bender seconds the motion. Please vote.
That's okay.
Mr. Toledano? The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
Number 6, ordinance calendar number 7191, ordinance to enter the Tammany Trace for the purpose of constructing a 5-foot concrete walkway and culvert to connect the Trace Parkway at the northern edge of Tammany Trace, 1,600 feet west of South Tranquility Road, in association with the development of the Oaklawn Trace subdivision located in Ward 7, District 11. Mr. Davis?
Mr. Laughlin,
Oh. Oh, I'm sorry, District 11. Mr. Laughlin, sorry about that.
Yeah, I'd defer to the administration. This is their project. This is procedural for them to do one of their projects that they asked me to do. It's just to connect, it's to put a culvert in to connect the subdivision to the trace.
Would you like to move to adopt
Yes,
then?
move to adopt.
Second by Councilman Canulette. Please vote. Number 7, ordinance calendar number 7192, ordinance amending the official zoning map of St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana to reclassify a certain parcel located on the east side of Commercial Drive, north of Browns Village Road, Slidell, and the property comprises a total of 1.07 acres of land, more or less, from its present NC 6 to I2, Ward 9, District 14. Councilman Randolph. You moving to adopt?
Adopt, please.
Motion to adopt,
I'm
second
sorry.
by Councilman Laughlin. All in favor, please, or please vote.
The motion is unanimous with one absent.
Number 8, ordinance calendar number 7193, ordinance amending the official zoning map of St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana to reclassify certain parcel located on the east side of Commercial Drive, north of Browns Village Road, Slidell, and which property comprises a total of 1.07 acres of land, more or less, from its present NC 6 to I2. This is also Councilman Randolph.
Move to adopt.
Get a second. Second by Councilman Laughlin. Please vote.
Mr. Fitzgerald, Ms. Casbon. The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
Okay. Number 10, ordinance amending the official zoning map of St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana to reclassify a certain parcel. Oh, we're on. Oh, sorry.
You got that one.
I missed number 9. Okay, ordinance calendar number 7194, ordinance amending the official zoning map of St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana to reclassify a certain parcel located on the east side of Henderson Road, south of Gottschalk Road, Covington, and which property comprises a total of 1 acres of land, more or less, from its present A1 Suburban District to A2 Suburban District, Ward 1, District 3. Ms. Casbon,
Move to approve. Adopt.
second by Councilman Lorino. Please vote.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
Number 10, ordinance calendar number 7195, an ordinance amending the official zoning map of St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana to reclassify a certain parcel located at the southeast corner or southeast intersection of 4th Street and LA Highway 36, Beta Springs, in which property comprises a total of 0.25 acres of land, more or less, from its present A4A single-family residential district to HC1, Ward 3, District 2. Councilman Fitzgerald.
So move.
Move to adopt. Second by Councilman Davis. Please vote.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
Number 11, ordinance calendar number 7196, ordinance to correct the road and drainage inventory to include DeSoto Street, Ward 9, District 12. Councilman Bender.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bender, second by Councilman Canulette. Please vote. Ordinance calendar number
Mr. Okay. The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 7197, ordinance accepting finalized subdivision into road and drainage inventory, specifically Terabella Phase 1A4, Ward 1, District 1. Councilman Dean.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman, second by Councilman Fitzgerald. Please vote.
Ms. Tanner. The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 7198, ordinance to amend the 2023 grants budget, amendment number 1. Somebody, would you like finance to give a brief description of that before we vote on that one?
Is my mic on? Okay, thank you. So ordinance calendar 7198 is for grant awards received during the month. 2 awards, one for $152,608, which is for the Regional Arts Grant, and then also for almost $1.8 million for energy assistance to low-income families.
Motion by Councilman Davis, second by Councilman Randolph. Please vote.
Mr. Lorino, Mr. Toledano. The motion is unanimous with one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 7199, ordinance to amend the 2023 capital improvement budget and capital assets amendment number 3, economic development capital projects. Councilman Laughlin.
Apologize. So moved.
Second by Councilman Dean. Please vote.
Mr. Toledano. The motion is unanimous with one absent.
Number 15, ordinance calendar number 7200, ordinance to amend the 2023 capital improvement budget and capital assets amendment number 4, Parish Road and Drainage Capital Projects. Councilman Dean.
So moved.
Seconded by Councilman Canulette. Please vote.
Mr. Toledano, Mr. Laughlin. The motion is unanimous with one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 7201, ordinance to declare a tax due property surplus property and to authorize the parish to proceed with the process for advertising and the sale of such adjudicated property. Ward 3, District 2, Councilman Fitzgerald.
So moved.
So moved by Councilman Fitzgerald, seconded by Councilman Lorino. Please vote.
What are they buying?
Ms. Tanner, Mr. Toledano.
Okay.
The motion is unanimous with one absent.
Number 17, ordinance calendar number 7202, ordinance to renew and revise the growth management, annexation, and revenue sharing agreement between St. Tammany Parish Government Sales Tax District Number 3, City of Mandeville, and to provide for other matters in connection therewith. Councilman Lorino,
So moved.
seconded by Councilman Davis. Any discussion?
Mr. Toledano. The motion is unanimous with one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 7203, ordinance to renew and revise the growth management, annexation, and revenue share agreement between St. Tammany Parish Government, Sales Tax District Number 3, and the Village of Folsom, and to provide on other matters in connection therewith. Ward 2, District 3, Councilman Casabon.
Move to adopt.
Second by Councilman Fitzgerald.
Mr. Laughlin, Mr. Toledano. The motion is unanimous with one absent.
I keep trying to remind Arthur to vote in. Feel bad about it.
Ordinance calendar number 7204, ordinance to renew and revise the growth management, annexation, revenue sharing agreement between St. Tammany Parish Government, Sales Tax District Number 3, and the Town of Pearl River, provide for other matters in connection therewith. Councilman Smith.
Move to adopt.
Second. Second by Councilman Laughlin. Please vote.
The motion is unanimous with two absent.
All right, number 20, ordinance calendar number 7205, an ordinance amending the official zoning map of St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana to classify a certain parcel located on the west side of Riverbend Lane, west of Tiantella Ranch Road, being Lot 17, Phases 2A and 2B, Tiantella Ranch Estate subdivision, Folsom, and which property comprises a total of 1 acre land more or less from its present A2 suburban to A2 suburban district and MHO housing, Ward 1, District 3.
Move to adopt.
Motion by Councilman Casabon, second by Councilman Dean. Please vote.
Mr. Toledano.
Sometimes they call it covered.
The motion is unanimous with one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 7206, an ordinance amending the official zoning map of St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana, to reclassify a certain parcel located on the east side of Broom Road, north of Receiving Station Road, Slidell, in which property comprises a total of .25 acres of land more or less from its present A4 to A4 Single Family District and MHO, Ward 9, District 9. Councilman Smith.
Move to adopt.
Second by Councilman Canulette. Please vote. Number 22, ordinance counter number 7207, an ordinance amending the official zoning map of St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana to reclassify certain parcel located on the south side of Lake Ramsey Road, east of Beverly Road, being Lot 61, Ramsey Heights subdivision, Covington, in which property comprises a total of 2.13 acres of land, more or less, from its present A2 suburban district to A2 suburban district and MHO manufactured housing overlay. Councilman Casabon,
Move to adopt.
second by Councilman Laughlin. Please vote.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
Ordinance counter number 7208, an ordinance amending the official zoning map of St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana to reclassify a certain parcel located on the north side of Fitzgerald Church Road, east of UF Keating Road, Covington, in which property comprises a total of 6.957 acres of land, more or less, from its present A2 suburban district, or I'm sorry, A1 suburban district to A2 suburban district, or to District 6. Councilman Tanner.
I make a motion to adopt.
Councilwoman O'Brien, seconds. Please vote.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
Number 24, ordinance calendar 7209, an ordinance amending the official zoning map of St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana to reclassify a certain parcel located on the south side of Louisiana Highway 435, east of Merrimead Lane and west of White Oaks Road, being 28484 Highway 435, Abita Springs, in which property comprises a total of 10 acres of land, more or less, from its present HC3 to an HC3 and entertainment overlay. Ward 6, District 6, Councilman Tanner.
Make a motion to adopt.
Second by Councilman Davis. Please vote.
Mr. Toledano? The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
A motion to refer to the Zoning Commission ordinance counter number 7173, ordinance to amend St. Tammany Parish Code of Ordinances, Part 2, Land Development Code, Chapter 130, Unified Development Code, Article 5, Overlays, Division 6, Planned Corridor District, Sections 130-1809 through 130-1814, to add Military Road, Highway 90 in Slidell as a planned corridor district. Councilman Smith.
Motion to refer to Planning and Zoning.
Second by Councilman O'Brien. Please vote.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
All right. We have two items off the floor. A unanimous vote of members present is needed to open the off-the-floor agenda. Also, when you make your motion, if you can please state the reason why it needs to be off the floor. So we have off the floor number one. Oh, we have to vote to open the floor. All right. Well,
I got to take care of something.
I have a motion to open the floor for the off-the-floor items. It has to be unanimous. Please vote.
Wait, we need a second.
Oh, we need a second. I'm sorry. Second by Councilman Davis. Please vote. Trying to move it along.
Ms. Tanner? The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
All right. So we have off-the-floor item number one, ordinance to revise the growth management annexation and revenue sharing agreement between St. Tammany Parish Government Sales Tax District Number 3 and the town of Madisonville, and to provide for other matters in connection therewith. Councilman Lorino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the council, for letting me bring this off the floor. This is a very important, I don't know if everybody's familiar with Madisonville, but it's a very quaint little town, and for many years, Madisonville has not pursued a growth management expansion. Why? I don't know. Mayor Pilar came in, we started talking about it a few years ago, and we're now to the point of just last week, they met, everything was worked out, and for some reason, I thought that they had a problem, but they really didn't. It wasn't Madisonville. The mayor of Mandeville and Madisonville have been working very closely and working together, and I want to thank both of them. They're both here at the present time, and it's very important that we move this forward so that Madisonville can start receiving what I want to say is their fair share. And so I'd like to ask the council to make a motion to approve it.
Do the mayors like to speak or anything, or you?
No, sir.
Okay. Second by Councilman Talalano, so.
They know the system pretty well, and so I'll just ask for a vote. They don't need to speak. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we just need a motion second, that's for introduction only.
Yes, sir.
Resolutions, off the floor, number 2, a resolution authorizing St. Tammany Parish government, here referred to as governmental unit, to join with the state of Louisiana, other local government units as a participant in Louisiana State Local Government Opioid Litigation Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU, and any subsequent formal agreements necessary to implement the MOU, including but not limited to execution of the settlement participation forms, the National Settlement Agreement, releases, and other documents approved by council. I think the title of this is pretty self-explanatory, that we, as the parish, are part of the nationwide or state litigation regarding opioids, and that's finally come to a settlement, and we need to do this in order to have a seat at the table. If anybody has any questions on Terry or somebody, administration, I'd entertain a motion to moved by Councilman Canulet, seconded by Councilman Laughlin. Please vote.
The motion is unanimous with no one absent.
All right, motion to adjourn, Councilwoman Casabon and Councilman Fitzgerald.